Okay, here's the first question coming up. What can I suggest to students who choose the song because they just love the music, not the lyrics?
Well, that's a good question. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
And I say, meaning I get students of mine. And for me, because I always start everything for my singers with, you've been allotted this platform to speak to people. You have the ability to make them feel happy, to make them feel sad, to make them feel compassionate, to charge them to do something. What are you going to do with this platform? And usually when I have this conversation, they're like, okay, well, let me think about this. And they typically go back and either pick another song, or I make them write something. So how are you going to change these words so that they're what you want to do? How how can you make it from the perspective that makes sense for you? I have to do that a lot with younger students. I don't work with too many under 18 students, but when I do, don't sing no grown song about a grown topic. I'm just saying, you know, I always say, if you can't speak, if I can't stand there and watch you speak these words and tell this story to A, your friends, or B, mine, then I'm not going to teach you to sing that. Okay? So I'm always rewriting stuff. I'm always rewriting stuff, you know, for my singers to make it age appropriate or to make it context, because it could be love. They can sing songs about love. I mean, you experience love at all ages, hopefully, prayerfully, you know. But if we talking about some other stuff that may be beyond what you even know about or should know about, then that's where I'm at. So I typically take that approach. Write your own or pick a story that you want to tell.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree. It's got to be, and there's something I'll also talk to singers about, and because I discovered this luckily when I was younger, that it's not so important that your personal context match the context of the artist that the original artist is singing, or even in a show. You don't have to have that same context as what your situation is, how you relate to it personally. You can make it up, right? So little younger adolescents, I have some students that are very young and very gifted, but if they're singing, a song like Honey's Beautiful, there's so many more layers to that depending on what age you are. But they can relate at their own level, and that's what we need to do. We need to find, how do we relate to this personally, and you can make up your own context. It doesn't have to be, this is what I saw this artist do, or
Right.
how they did it on the stage. It's really your secret. And the truth is, all of those artists, they're not telling you their secrets either.
Exactly.
You're feeling their message because they're going on a journey. So feel free to use that, and maybe I'll take that next question.
Yeah, but before you say that, that reminds me of a exercise that I've done with one of my actually undergrads, who talked about that she's never been in love before, and so she hadn't been out of love, and we were singing Autumn Leaves, okay, which is a jazz song, a jazz standard. And so we ended up, even though she was singing Autumn Leaves, which talks about a lover relationship that you're kind of reminiscent about, she started talking about her relationship with her father, and the things that occurred that made her think of her father and the time that they used to share together and how she missed that. And it ended up being the completely just as emotional, using the words Autumn Leaves, Drift by My Window. So those things are all the time, are very much easier to do with songs that have lyrics that help with that imagination.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is a perfect example. There is a question that we got that goes along these lines, I think, and that is any song might be sung from who we are as a person, or is it also valid to get to the characters that you are not, but the character says the lyrics? So yes, it's totally valid. And when you're talking about a character, right? We need to find out if you're playing a funny person, you need to find the funny in you, right? And if you're playing a villain, you have to play that character as authentically as possible. So you're not, you might not be a murderer. Hopefully you're not. That would be scary, right? But nobody, there's an example, nobody believes that they're evil. Even evil people don't think they're evil. They have a motivation for what they're doing, and whatever that may be. So you don't have to think like that person, but you have to, as the character, make similar choices. By making up your secret background, and how am I going to relate to this? And perhaps you take it completely out of context, you know? But you
And
do need to respond to this as the character. And I guess what I want to say is that is you. It's still you being the character, right? So there's not really disconnect between what you feel and what a character feels. If you're doing it right, the character feels what you feel. You want to add anything to that, Trineice?
yeah, I mean, this is where I go back into the concept of root emotions. You know, at the end of the day, what are you singing about? And that's where you get to embody compassion for certain people or certain circumstances. Obviously in my music, I'm not playing a character or a role, but there are some stories, if I'm talking to you about someone else's story, that I have compassion for, that I may not have been through that place, but because of the root emotion, I can emote from that place, and I can sing from a place of empathy and compassion. Okay, so that's how it relate in what I do.
Yeah, that's an excellent angle. And I think it's important to look at that, and with singing technique and also different techniques. I mean, for me, Dr. Trineice just described with some different words exactly what I was saying, right? But maybe the way she said it went bing to you, and maybe the way I said it went bing. And when you're going into vocal terminology and singing terminology, a really good professional coach doesn't care what you call it. What we care about is that the light goes on.
Right.
All right. But that is so true. It's the root emotion, this core emotion, and that you can use for so many different situations. We've got another question about, because a lot of teachers have this issue, right? You've got a student, and the question is, I'll share it with you. I don't want to. Where is it? Open up. There we go. So the question is, got stuff rolling around on my desk. Sorry about that. The question again is, what do you do with a student who is unable to, or having trouble expressing themselves emotionally with the text? Students who are embarrassed to open up. And everybody, we all deal with this. So what are some tricks, or what's a trick that you've had some success with, Dr. Trineice?
Well, for me, I'm usually trying to start in a space where their personality. I try to assign songs or encourage them to choose songs or topics that they can better emote with, which could be tranquility or contentment, particularly for people that don't have like, or have been conditioned to be very refined, or that have been taught that outward emotion is not dignified, that there's reasons, particularly at Princeton, where someone may not come out being outwardly expressive, but yet have the desire. So a lot of times I'm trying to get them first to be comfortable with just expressing themselves, and start to really delve deep. Because again, it could be a cultural thing. It could be like an ethnic cultural thing, not a socioeconomical cultural thing, where you're just not taught to be outwardly expressive. So starting to realize context, starting to realize, well, what are the differences? Because unless they are really like, and I've had some that are really like, yeah, this is my happy face, like no expression, that ends up, it ends up working when you're trying to get them to just loosen up in general. When they're staged performers or theatrical performers, we do a lot of work on the mute test. A lot of times it can be an awareness thing. Like, are you using your face at all? Are you using your body language? Okay, I'm going to make a video of you. Let's put you on mute. Do you want to unmute? Like, is there anything that you're doing that's compelling you to be like, oh, what's happening? We look at other performers on mute. What is it about their mannerism? So sometimes I come at it from a body standpoint. But most of the time it's just what kind of exercises, like the one that I did before, where I'm taking you outside of the music. Let's just talk about this. Let's musically talk about what, this root emotion, what this story is. If you were to continue this conversation, what would it be? What would you say outside the music? And then trying to put it back into the music. So I'm always moving from an internal place, okay, which may be longer. So I don't know if that might be your path. You might not be. You might be like, I don't have time for that. But that is my approach.